Hello, my name is Eric Carl, creator of Curious George. No, don't believe everything you see on the internet. My name is Nick Bruel, and I'm here to talk about the price of gas in Canada. No, I'm gonna talk about Bad Kitty. I mean, what else am I gonna talk about? Even at home, that's all we talk about. Sometimes my daughter will look at me, she said, please, Daddy, can we talk about something other than Bad Kitty, like school or the weather or homework? And say, no, we're gonna talk about Bad Kitty, and you're gonna like it. Well, my daughter's not here, so it's your turn. These are the 3 questions that I am asked most often about Bad Kitty. Question number 1, where did I get the idea for Bad Kitty? Well, this is how it works. When it's time for me to write a story, I don't think of the story first, I think of the title first. It's true. Before I think of the story, the character, plot, anything, I think of the title first, and I'll tell you why this is. If you've ever tried to write a story, you might find that writing a story can be very, very difficult. But writing a title can be very, very easy, because a title could be just 1, maybe 2 words. So this is how it happened. It was about 17 years ago now. I was sitting at home. I was at my desk. I had this big blank sheet of paper in front of me. I had this pen in my hand. And instead of thinking of a story, I thought, I'm just gonna think of titles. Titles I'd never seen before, titles I didn't think even existed. So that's what I did. I just started writing them down, title after title after title. I didn't worry if they were great titles or lousy titles, because yeah, you know what? After a while, I wrote down some titles that I kinda liked, and I wrote down some titles that I kinda didn't like. But then I wrote down one title that I really liked, and that title was Bad Kitty. So that's when I had to start asking myself some questions. And the first question I had to ask, of course, was, okay, I've got this story about a cat doing something bad. What does she do that's so bad? That's when I started writing down so many ideas. I thought it'd be interesting if I put them into alphabetical order. Okay. So the next natural question I had to ask myself was, why? Why would this cat do so many terrible things? Knowing cats, food is so instrumental in their behavior, so I thought, you know what, I'll do an alphabet of foods that she's given that she does not like. And that is how the very first Bad Kitty book took shape. Arguably, that is how this entire Bad Kitty empire was born. Purely from my sitting down at my table 17 years ago and contemplating those 2 little words, Bad and Kitty. Question number 2. Is there a real Bad Kitty? Well, kind of yes and no. I mean, the personality of Kitty is based loosely on various cats I've known throughout my life, but she is physically modeled after a cat I had when I was a little boy named Zuzu. The cat was named Zuzu, not me, anyway. Zuzu was this beautiful little cat. She was small, even for a cat, but she had this great design. She was a black cat, black from the tip of her ears to the tip of her tails, everywhere except for this elegant little tuft of white fur she had on her chest. I always thought it looked like a piece of jewelry that she was wearing. So when I first thought of the character of Kitty, I thought, I'll just make her look like Zuzu. Thank goodness I made her a black cat, because I had no idea back then that just a couple years later, I would be making all these chapter books about this cat where all the illustrations inside would be black and white and gray. I could not have made a better decision had I known. Question number 3. When did I first start writing stories? Well, there are 2 ways for me to answer that question. I'm in a generous mood, so I'm going to answer it both ways. On one hand, my first book that I had published was called Boing. It was about a baby kangaroo learning how to go boing. And Bad Kitty was my second book. It came out in 2005. But those are books that I wrote that were published. And here's the point. Just because you go through all the heartache and effort and energy to create a story or a book of your own, and it doesn't happen to wind up on the shelves of a bookstore or the shelves of your library, it doesn't mean it's not a book. Of course it's a book. It just hasn't been published yet. So the other way for me to answer that question is to say, well, I've been writing stories and making books since I was in first grade. It's the truth. Because when I was in first grade, There was nothing I loved to do more than to sit at my table and with a big blank sheet of paper in front of me with a pen, pencil, crayon, or whatever I get my little hands on, just start writing and drawing stories. So that's what I did. I was writing and drawing stories in 2nd grade and in 3rd grade, 4th grade. I remember being in 5th grade. When I was in 5th grade, I wrote a whole series of stories called The Adventures of the Invisible Family. The great thing about writing and illustrating a series of stories called The Adventures of the Invisible Family is that, as it turns out, an invisible family is very easy to draw. Mr. Invisible was just shirt, pants, shoes. Mrs. Invisible was a house dress. The dog was invisible, so all I had to do was draw a dog collar that floated around in midair. But the point is this. I just kept writing and drawing stories in 6th grade and in middle school, high school, college, and all those years after college. I've been writing and drawing stories all my life. Turns out I love it as much now as I did when I was only in 1st grade. Well, thank you for listening, and thank you for supporting KidLit TV. And most importantly, thank you for reading.
If you found a whale in your bathtub, what would you do?
I think this would kind of depend on the whale, wouldn't it? I mean, if it was a blue whale, I'd ask it to pass a soap. If it's a humpback whale, then I would scrub its back, because it's a humpback. It's hard for them to reach. But if it was a killer whale, I wouldn't do anything, because it's a trick question. Killer whales are not really whales, they're oceanic dolphins. Now you know.